Once upon a time, only the olives used to grow on this small island. For over 100 years, there has been a shipyard here called ULJANIK, recalling the old olive groves. It was in March 1947 that the workers took over this shipyard, which had been devastated by war, and built it up again from its ruins. Today, in 1971, here in the ULJANIK works of Pula, a sailing giant, a vessel of 225,000 tons dead weight, is being constructed. 32,000 tons of steel is needed to build up this colossus. It's quite enough to show a sketch to this miraculous device, and it cuts strictly along the line. As it cuts, it automatically follows commands for the precise cutting of the steel plates to the required size. Everything tailored has to be sewed. This modern welding machine welds even the thickest metal sheets in one operation. Were we to join together all the welds of the Berge Istra, we would have an 800-kilometer long line. Like a sailing town, this future supership is projected and created here in dock number 3 of the Pula shipyard. Parts of the assembly are simultaneously carried forward, according to an exact synchronized rhythm, to be built into or placed down at certain places at certain times. Movement and situation, time and space, everything has been determined and programmed in advance. To build the ship, one must prepare in detail. On the welded steel, the sun reflects the welding process. The building of the ship is a very precise science. On the driving axle, 128 ton in weight, the treatment is as precise as that of the finest Swiss watch. As they are invisible, the steel joints are always checked by X-ray. Not one junction can be considered finished before this kind of control proves the junctions faultless. 2 marine engines, both as high as a 3-story building, have 35,000 horsepower in all. Here, where Greek and Roman boats used to come to load oil, the one olive tree left struggles for sunshine in the shadow of this 26-meter-high giant. For 115 years already, the people here have built ships. All these ships of the line, frigates, corvettes, torpedo boats and submarines, have descended from the Pula dock to the sea in the same way they afterwards sailed, as completed, ready-to-use ships. But this 115th year, the ship enters the water in 2 pieces. There are 4 things I cannot understand, said the Holy Bible poet. As the bird flies in the sky, the boat floats on the sea. Even for modern human beings, the transit of the ship to the sea is a marvelous scene, not quite understandable. A scene which everyone would like to see again. Therefore, we shall repeat this sequence 3 times, shooting with 3 cameras. half of the ship is floating. The other half is waiting to be joined with the first in the sea, so completing the ship. Here, looking at this scene, we are struck by an idea about the growth of ULJANIK. The first ship built after the Second World War in the year 1951 and named Neptune was not launched but lifted into the sea by crane. This first ship was even smaller than these tugboats, which are approximately 18 meters long. From 1951 to 1971, only 20 years, but 3 Neptunes would hardly cover the width of Berge, Istra. Tugboats patiently drag or push this newly launched vessel, this strange ship, a half ship. Although it is a steel giant, because of this, the maneuver must be the more highly sensitive. The bow half first, then the stern half, is roughly ballasted and are drawn next to each other beside the rigging dock, where the joining will be effected. The precise ballasting of both halves has not yet been carried out. To paint more than 2 million square meters of surface, nearly 200 tons of color must be used. The steel hulks approach each other, heavy and mute, while others speak. The most difficult and the most important operation before joining by welding is the ballasting of the ship. Upon this operation depends whether the draft of both halves will be the same or not, as well as whether all points of junction will meet at the correct place. The joining of the ship is accomplished using a special construction tunnel in U form. The tunnel consists of 3 parts, one flat and underwater, and 2 knee-shaped laterals. These parts will be placed under the bottom of the ship and mounted on the adjoining place. Just before the halves are brought to the joining distance, the tunnel goes underwater to be joined to the central division. ULJANIK is one of the few shipyards, or rather the second shipyard in the world, building new ships in 2 parts. And this is what attracts people from very distant countries. tunnel is positioned under the division and lifted close to the ship's bottom to be affixed there. Water from the connecting space is pumped out, and the waterproof of the tunnel has to be checked. Both halves are precisely ballasted. The first leveling is completed, the tunnel is sunk and pulled secure, and the two halves approach each other to a distance of less than 5 millimeters, pulled by the windlasses on the deck. When the necessary measurement of draft and the calculation of ballast have been done, the loading of ballast into the ship's tanks achieves the desired draft and a flat keel. Before the final closure of the two halves, leveling has to be carried out in several phases. Geometry helps here. A second leveling is carried out to produce a straight line and altitude. Before the welding of the two ballasted halves, punctuation takes place. This means a provisional joining before the final welding of the ship. The preparatory work is over, and on the given signal, 45 electro-welders at a distance of 1.5 meters from each other start to weld the whole of the connected hulls. This balances the contraction of different junction points and reduces differences in worker speed. Both halves are finely welded and joined. They make a ship. The motor ship, Berge Istra, is an oil carrier, 314 meters long. 3 football grounds could be placed on its deck. The tradition of many centuries of baptizing the ship before it is launched is broken, as this ship was made in 2 parts. Such ships are given their names when joined in the sea. The President of Yugoslavia, Josip Broz Tito, attended this ceremony accompanied by his wife, Jadran, who is the godmother of this first Gulliver of ULJANIK. Mr. Sigvald Berge was also present, as well as other eminent guests from Norway and from Croatia and Yugoslavia. To her not-so-small godchild, the godmother said, "I give you the name Berge Istra, and wish you to carry it to the credit of your builders. I wish you always good seas and good sailing to your officers and sailors." Efficiency in this type of building enables ULJANIK to plan future expansion, to build the greatest ships to sail the seas. They have contracted to build 3 more ships of the same kind for the same ship owner. In preparing themselves to build these ships, ULJANIK is ready to build the ships of up to 400,000 tons dead weight. Something of which the shipbuilders of Pula are especially proud are these two engines built in Yugoslavia, made by ULJANIK engineers. With 7 cylinders, each 668 tons in weight, they give a speed of 16.5 miles. This ship can carry at one time 225,000 tons, solid or fuel. Its carrying capacity is equal to the quantity of a 150-kilometer long railway train. "11,000 cubic meters of fuel can be placed in the tanks. It is enough to go around the world." The most modern equipment on the bridge enable this giant with an electronic brain to keep to prescribed routes. This Decker navigator automatically shows any deviation from the route. On the way, a ship, a floating bridge, connecting peoples and countries.